The Classic TV channel is your happy trails to golden oldies television from the 1940s through the formative years of the 1950s and 60s. Enjoy restored TV shows Mickey Rooney Show, Groucho Marx, Trouble with Father, Terry and the Pirates, One Step Beyond, Beverly Hillbillies, Bonanza, The Lucy Show, Dick Van Dyke, Annie Oakley, Ozzie and Harriet, The Howdy Doody Show, and many, many more. Binge your night away. So return with us now to those golden days of yesteryear.
The plane had half an hour's stop in Albuquerque. Time enough for a fast breakfast. Then I saw the headline. Cooch was a very good friend. He'd always told some pretty tall stories, but this time I had the feeling he'd gone too far. In fact, far enough to get into serious trouble. I headed for the Circle J Ranch. Dallas would have to wait. Maybe Cooch had seen a flying saucer, only I was very doubtful. Cooch, by habit, was prone to make the New West as exciting as the Old. Cooch's latest tale had become a national headline, and that in the eyes of some people could cease to be funny.
It's been a long time since you were here, Mr. Lanyard.
I wish I could make it more often. Oh, by the way, I don't have any riding clothes with me.
Oh, it's all right. We have a men's shop at the annex now.
Good. Is Cooch around? I'd like to talk to him.
He's at the stables. Old Cooch. He's a sly one, all right. Certainly knows how to get publicity for the ranch. Our business has doubled since that story broke in the newspapers. Everybody wanting to see a flying saucer.
Maybe they will. I found Cooch spinning a tale for some Indian boys. He hadn't changed. Neither had his stories.
This here Indian, he walked into the group. He swelled up his brisket and gave out with a whoop that bounced around the valley and dang near on to 2 turns of the moon. And then that
lovely flower of a girl came a-running slap dab into his arms.
Mike Lanyard, you old dude. Right, boys, see you later.
I bet the last 5 generations of Apaches have heard that story.
Yeah, more like 6. Seems you've heard it a couple of times yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't look much different, boy. Just as puny as ever. What brought you out to a man's country?
You? And what I read in the papers?
I'm giving the straight skinny about that, Mike.
Huh?
I seen it just before dawn. I seen it come down, that saucer thing. Whoosh! That made these jet boys look like they was driving a plow horse.
Sure you're not stretching things a little?
I was just laying out there looking at the morning stars and thinking about putting on the coffee pot. When here it come.
What did it look like exactly?
Well, it was drowned, fire coming from all around, and it made a gosh-awful hissing sound. It'd go this way a spell.
This time he's come up with something even more fascinating.
You mean the flying saucer story? I wouldn't take it too lightly.
You've got to admit that Cooch has a tendency to lean away from the truth at times.
Perhaps this is the exception.
I think you misunderstood.
Perhaps, Mr. Lanyard. You see, I've the feeling you're poking fun at my uncle. And even if you're right, I don't like it. May I ask what's so funny?
You. I've known Cooch for a long time. I've heard him tell some pretty tall stories, and it never bothered me. This morning when I read his statement in the papers, I was amused. And then I realized that perhaps he might need me, so I...
Why would he need you?
For 2 reasons. If his story's true, he's probably the only living person who's been that close to a saucer. And maybe that isn't healthy. And if it's not true, he'll have a lot of explaining to do to the authorities.
I'm terribly sorry. I'd never thought about it that way. I'm glad you're here.
Morning.
Morning.
Sleep good?
Nothing like the ground to make you appreciate a bed.
Sometimes, Mike, you disappoint me. That's dude talk.
Speaking of disappointments, where's your flying saucer?
I was sure we'd see it.
Exactly where was it when you saw it?
And you do believe me, Mike?
Where was it, Cooch?
Well, first I saw it circling round, then I saw it land. Come on.
I wondered how long it would take Cooch to tell me it was all a joke, but he played it straight. He walked me over some rough ground and he told me how he'd spotted the saucer. Cooch had to be kidding, and I knew it. I also knew that I had to find a way to keep him out of the trouble he was headed for.
There's where I seen it, right over there.
Let's go see if it left any marks.
It couldn't have left a mark.
Oh, why not?
Because, Mike, it never touched the ground. It sort of hung suspended, just about 2 feet over the ground.
What about the men you said you saw?
They got off the ship. They had big heads and tiny bodies.
Let's check for their tracks. Or were they suspended too?
Okay, Mike. I didn't see any men. I made that up. But honest, I seen the saucer. It was plain as day. It didn't stay more than a minute, but I swear it's like I say. It landed and hovered over the ground. I guess I was so scared I froze to the earth. But I saw it, and you've just got to believe me.
I can't say that I believe you, Cooch. I can't say that I don't. But you and I have a job to do, and we better do it fast.
What kind of a job, Mike?
Well, you realize, of course, that by now your story's been flashed all over the world.
I didn't know it would be when I told the local reporter, but I guess you're right.
And you know that so far no one's ever come up with an answer to flying saucers.
Guess so.
Out here, Cooch, sleeping on the ground, looking up at a sky filled with stars, a man's imagination can run away with him. It gets so that anything seems right and possible. I don't blame you, Cooch. But I want to be sure no one else does.
That's the job you said we got to do.
Yeah. We're going back to the ranch. Then we're going to call your local reporter. You're going to tell him you thought things over. If you've decided what you thought was a flying saucer was really a falling star.
If you think that's the thing to do, Mike, I guess I'll have to do it. But I swear to you, it wasn't no falling star.
As we started back to camp, Cooch was upset. I wondered if it was because I didn't believe him, or if it was because I'd caught onto his joke. Either way, I didn't like it. I don't like a friend being a fool, or being made to look like a fool. All right, Cooch, let's go, huh?
You go, Mike. You've got a date with Judy. I've got some tall thinking to do. You call the reporter, tell him to be at the ranch later. I'll give him a new story. Like you said, the one about the falling star.
Okay, Cooch. I'm sorry.
Nothing to be sorry about. If you don't believe me, I know it's next to impossible for anyone else.
That afternoon, Judith gave me a taste of the past. Maybe that's why I began to wonder if Cooch was telling the truth. I made a decision. Cooch was a friend, and right or wrong, I was going to go along with him. No reporters, no new statements. If the world believed he saw a saucer, why should I prove it a lie?
This is only one of the caves in this part of the country, Mike. Imagine, 10,000 years since they've been inhabited.
Before we started, you said these caves tied in with Cooch's story of the flying saucer. How?
Well, the human mind is a funny thing, Mike. Sometimes it will only believe what its eyes reveal.
Like this cave?
Like what this cave represents. Civilized life here thousands of years ago. Some would refuse to believe that these people actually existed, unless they saw the proof.
At least there's proof.
Before it's over, perhaps Uncle Cooch will find some proof as well.
Perhaps. I thought Cooch would be happy when I told him his flying saucer story was okay with me. Only I figured wrong.
I tell you, it's fantastic. Carter found Cooch's horse, but Cooch was nowheres around.
He wouldn't leave his horse in the desert.
I know.
Mike, what time did you leave, Cooch?
Early this morning. He said he wanted to do some thinking. He said he'd get back to the ranch later.
Did he seem okay?
Yeah, he seemed okay.
I knew those flying saucer stories would get him into trouble. Don't do a man any good to talk too much.
He'll be back. I think you're taking this too seriously.
Do you really, Mike? Remember, you said it might not be healthy. I'm worried. In fact, I'm frightened.
Yaga, why did you look for Cooch?
Well, he had an appointment to take some of our dudes for a ride. Ain't like him to forget. When he didn't show up, I just naturally went looking for him.
How did you know where to look?
Ever since he saw that flying contraption, he's been spending most of his time in that spot.
And?
Well, I found his horse and no sign of him. Then circled a mile or so in each direction, still no sign of him. Then I headed back to the ranch. It's like Kelly says. It ain't healthy to talk about them flying things.
Mike, what do you think? What should we do?
Let's go and examine the place carefully. There has to be a solution. It doesn't have to be a flying saucer. Wait for me outside, buddy. I didn't know what it was all about, but I wanted to find out. Then I saw the army, and by their manner I knew they weren't on a holiday. And I got a break. I recognized the colonel. He was an old friend, Shag Davis. We'd known each other when a jet was still a blueprint. Hello, Shaggy.
Mike Lanyard. Well, of all people. Haven't seen you since Anzio was 44.
That was 3 promotions ago. Congratulations.
Thanks. What are you doing these days?
Right now, the same thing that you are. Looking for Cooch Jeffords. Your being here, is it official?
Yeah.
And I think we'd better have a talk.
Thank you. And you say the old man showed you the spot where he supposedly saw this object?
Yeah, we stayed out all night. I didn't take it very seriously.
Yeah, well, maybe you should have.
Shag, the Air Force must get dozens of flying saucer reports. What's so special about this one?
2 things. First of all, Jeffords sent us a sketch. It's crude, obviously the work of a novice, but it ties in with the experts' designs of the type craft that might be capable of such performance.
And the second thing?
It was 3 days ago that Jeffords said he saw the craft, 5:44 a.m.
Well, Cooch didn't mention the time.
He didn't have to. At that moment, our radar screens picked up the same object in the same locality. It was flying at well over 2,000 miles an hour.
What do you think?
I'm Air Force, Mike. We want to know.
I suppose I should have taken him more seriously.
All I know is we have to find him. He has to tell us everything that happened. After that, maybe we'll have enough facts to start, as you say, thinking.
Cooch told me the ship never landed. It stayed about 2 feet off the ground. I didn't believe him.
According to our electronic engineers, that's very possible. You know, Mike, when something hits your radar screens at over 2,000 miles an hour, you quickly learn to believe things that might otherwise be incredible. Right now, I need Cooch Jeffords.
We headed for Cooch's camp. We followed his trail until we lost it. Shag was all brass. He kept saying, "These things just don't happen." I agreed. Then he said he was going to have the Air Force photograph every inch of the ground. He was determined to find the answer and Cooch. I had another idea. It had nothing to do with planes or pictures. It had to do with a band of Mescalero Indians, part of the Apache tribe. I headed for the commissioner's office, and I kept wondering if I hadn't lost my mind. A lovable faker, flying saucers, radar screens, the military playing it for real, and a man just vanished into thin air. The commissioner gave me the name of the Mescalero chief, and he said something else. The chief was as modern as today, and a college graduate. All I hoped was that he hadn't forgotten how to track a trail almost as frail as a whisper.
I am Charles Longbow.
My name's Lanyard. This is Miss Jeffords.
Of course, Big Tail's niece.
Who?
Big Tail is the name our people have given Mr. Jeffords. His stories have earned it for him.
The commissioner told us you were the chief here.
I am known as the chief.
We came to ask your help. Cooch Jeffords is missing.
But he knows the desert as a man knows his own heart.
It seems that something has happened over which he had no control.
There is not a man among us who would not wish to help your uncle. He is a teller of wonderful tales to our children. You should have heard his accounts of riding with Cochise and Geronimo.
A little before his time, weren't they?
More than 50 years. But to the children it makes no difference. I will help you.
Good.
Longbow hadn't forgotten how to follow a trail. He followed Cooch's prints for at least 2 miles, then even he lost them. Longbow suggested we start afresh the next day. It wasn't hard to see that he was worried. The next day we started out again. This time Shag joined us. The result was the same. Longbow again lost the trail. I began to wish I'd never left Cooch. I didn't know where he was, but I felt that if I hadn't left him, this might never have happened.
I'm afraid we're not going to find him.
A man just can't vanish into thin air.
If I remember correctly, you didn't believe Cooch's story either.
Colonel Davis, Washington's on the phone. Will you take it here or in your room?
Right here will be all right. Colonel Davis. Right. Goodbye. Air reconnaissance reports their photographs show nothing. And the Pentagon asked just one thing: find Jeffords.
We must find. We must.
Come on, Colonel, let's keep looking. There must be an answer somewhere.
For days we'd been searching for Cooch without any success, and the Air Corps hadn't been any more successful. I didn't have the answers, but I didn't believe a man could vanish into thin air. I suggested searching the caves. Anything was better than just waiting and wondering. We went through several caves. I was almost ready to call it a day, but I couldn't. I knew I'd never be able to forget Cooch's face when I'd said, "We'll call it a falling star." I wasn't very proud of myself. Then we found a cave almost hidden. If this was it, what besides Cooch would we find? But it was like all the others, empty.
These caves are very interesting. I'd like to come back again sometime when my mind's more at ease.
Well, I don't believe anyone's been in here for hundreds of years.
Mike, I thought you'd like to know. Before we started out this morning, I received confirmation on our first radar report from 2 other bases.
You mean actual flying saucers?
No, I didn't say that. The report simply confirms some object moving at a speed in excess of 2,000 miles an hour. You can understand why it's important for us to find Cooch Jeffords.
Yeah. I shouldn't have left him alone.
Now, there's no use blaming yourself. Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe we'll find him.
I hope so.
We went through 2 more caves, turned up nothing. It was as though a saucer had returned and taken Cooch away. I didn't like it when I thought about it. We entered the last cave in the desert. None of us expected anything. We were just going through the motions. Then I heard a noise or a voice. We headed for it, and I saw Cooch. He wasn't in trouble. He didn't even seem unhappy. I had been responsible for his disappearance, so I turned to Shag and said,
He doesn't look any the worse for wear.
How can he possibly explain this ridiculous action?
Believe me, he'll have an answer. Do me a favor, will you?
What?
I was responsible for his disappearance. Let me handle it.
It's irregular, Mike. But you've got the ball.
Thanks.
Hello, Coach.
Well, I'll be darned. Hello, Mike. And Judith. Who are you?
This is Colonel Davis. He was sent from Washington. He wants to talk to you.
You know, Mike, I've been doing a lot of thinking about what you said to me. Guess maybe I do talk too much. So, Colonel, from now on, I got nothing to say.
But I have a lot of questions you've got to answer.
Sorry, Colonel. Got nothing to say.
You know, Cooch, this might be the one time when you should have something to say.
But you mean no falling star story?
That's right, Cooch. No falling star story.
Uncle Cooch, do you realize that half the Air Force and the entire staff at the ranch have been combing the country for you?
Shucks, girl, don't you know your uncle can take care of himself? I had some thinking to do. I needed some quiet.
But you've been gone 3 whole days.
Time passes quickly when a man's thinking.
How did you sustain yourself?
You mean, how did I eat? Well, I've been coming to this cave for a long time. Each visit, I'd store a little more grub. Got enough stored away now to last for a long while.
But why?
Honey, a person's got to think ahead these days. All kinds of war talk, A-bombs, H-bombs. And when I saw that thing, I figured maybe this cave would come in mighty handy. Now, Colonel, what is it you want to know?
Your newspaper statement caused a lot of comment.
Yeah, Mike said it would.
You went on to say that you not only saw the saucer, but its crew as well. Is that correct?
What do you say, Mike? Do you believe me?
Just answer the Colonel's questions.
Well, Colonel, only part of the story is true. I never saw any people. I said I did, just to add color. But the saucer, I saw. It was round, no windows, and it looked like it was on fire.
Well, I'll need a full written report. Let's get back to the ranch.
Mike, do you figure this will make the newspapers again?
I wouldn't be a bit surprised.
Uncle's become somewhat of a celebrity.
Well, that's right. And from the look of him, he's not going to let his public down.
I only wish you'd settle down long enough to answer a few questions for me.
What do you expect? It's not every day a man sees a flying saucer.
Then you do believe him?
Huh? Who am I to doubt it? Especially when radar reports confirm unknown objects flying at over 2,000 miles an hour.
Colonel, do you believe in flying saucers?
It isn't important what I believe, young lady. It's only important when men like your uncle can give us clear reports on what they've seen or found. Then over a period of time, we can eliminate the imaginary part and sift out the facts. Those facts will eventually do away with conjecture and become workable and usable knowledge. God willing.
Well, I know I saw a flying saucer. Who knows? Maybe the Air Force knows it, too.
Stick around a while, Mike. Never can tell what you might see.
Traveled several hundred miles to spend a holiday week with 2 old friends of mine, Jarveau and Jarvette. They do a clown act with a small traveling tent show, and the show always headquarters on the grounds of a large amusement park. This time it was no different. And I saw Jarveau. He'd been doing the same thing a year ago when I left him. It was good to see him again. And from his greeting, I knew he felt the same way. I thought about Jarveau and how carefully he watched over little Jarvette. I thought about how Jarvette had lost his speech and how these two wonderful people had to talk in silence. We talked of many things, and I told him I could stay for a week. I asked about Jarvette. Jarveau played it big. He pretended he was angry with him. He complained about Jarvette's special talent for picking up things that didn't belong to him. But he never stopped smiling. He showed me where Jarvette was, and I watched the quiet one enjoying himself. And I saw something else and said, up to his old tricks.
Worse than ever. The show understands, though. Each night I make the rounds, returning the trinkets, and the next day he picks up more.
Jarvette, mon petit ami.
Yes, I'm staying.
Not so bad today. I recognize these things. Madame Fifi's comb, a small one for the fat woman. The Ressa Saint Christopher, she and her father run the Punch and Judy. These cards from the privileged tent.
What about the key?
An old one that the boss keeps for Jarvette to steal. Yes, I recognize everything. Everything but this.
What is it? Frank Gibson, investigator. Federal Insurance Company. I didn't want to alarm Jarveau, but I felt that Frank Gibson could mean trouble.
The man he bumped did not like it.
He'll like it even less when he finds out what he's lost. I changed my clothes and headed for Frank Gibson's tent. I wanted to return his identification card, and there was another reason. I was curious as to why an insurance investigator was working for this small carnival as a prop man.
You waiting for me?
Yeah.
Who are you?
Michael Lanyard.
That's a familiar name.
I'm not surprised.
What does that mean?
You must hear a lot of names in your business.
Where'd you get this?
What difference does it make? You got it back?
Not so fast. Maybe it's a little bit more important than that.
Look, I came here to return it, not to get into an argument.
Wait a minute. What's a guy like you doing hanging around a 10-cent carnival?
That question works both ways. I'm staying with a couple of old friends, Jarveau and Jarvette. I won't ask why you're here.
Jarveau the pickpocket. I got a good mind to call the police.
He's not a pickpocket, and he didn't mean any harm. If you don't want people to know who you really are, why don't you get smart and hide that card someplace? If Jarveau could talk, he'd apologize. I'm doing it for him.
Lanyard.
Yeah?
I'm sorry, I guess I sounded like a kid. When I realized my identification card was gone, I got sick. I've been traveling with this show for over a month now. If my identity were known, it would undo everything.
Forget it. Jarveau can't talk. You're on your own.
Maybe. I'll have to think about it. If I come up with the right answer, perhaps I'll give you a call.
Not me. I'm on vacation.
You got anything against money?
Money? No, nothing. Unless it interferes with my plans. See you around, Gibson.
That's for sure.
The next day I headed down the Midway, and I heard someone who sounded friendly.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You weren't passing by, were you?
I was. But I can see now it would have been a mistake.
Like to play?
Might be interesting.
3 balls for 25 cents. Knock any one of those piles of milk bottles off the stand and win yourself a Ruby doll.
That's hard to do.
Sometimes, unless you have a hop on your fast one.
Or can throw a curve.
Any way at all. Use your best shot.
Maybe I'm a cynic, but to me Ruby seemed too friendly. So I played it like a guy who couldn't get himself arrested. No, thanks. If I throw any more, my arm will go up with the ball.
Good morning, Frank.
Hi, Ruby.
Give the gentleman a prize.
A man who can't hit 3 bottles at that range doesn't deserve a doll.
Maybe you weren't using that curve you talked about.
Maybe you were. Goodbye.
I'll go with you. Bye, Ruby.
Bye, Frank. Goodbye, Michael Lanyard.
Ruby must do all right.
Ruby? She does better than all right. Anyway, better when she and her husband used to do the Iron Jaw act on the Forbes show.
Are you a carnival man or an insurance investigator?
That's what I wanted to talk to you about.
Oh.
Care to step into my office?
Sure.
First of all, I want to thank you for the way you handled that card of mine. Could have been embarrassing.
Oh. You were going to tell me what you're doing here.
I wasn't sure till you arrived.
I'm on vacation. Java and Javette are old friends of mine. I visit them every year.
Let's stop clowning, Lanyard. I should have waited for the contact, but you made me, so I can't. So let's talk a deal.
All right. Let's talk a deal.
25%, no questions.
That would amount to how much?
25 grand.
You're talking about $100,000?
I'm talking about the score made in the Buffalo armored car holdup about 8 months ago.
You mean that money's here?
Like I said, I wasn't sure till you arrived.
What were you doing until I arrived?
Waiting for a break.
You sure it's here?
That's the way we got it figured. My company's already paid off the full amount to the insured armored car people. They'd be very happy to get back 75 grand.
Uh-huh.
What do you say?
I'll think about it.
Do that. Let me know what you decide. The offer's only good overnight.
I considered what Gibson had told me. An armored car robbery, $100,000. I had to think it out. For me, it didn't quite make sense. Why would anyone heist $100,000 and hide it in a small carnival? And if they were here, where could they keep that much money? I had the feeling that maybe Frank Gibson hadn't told me the truth, and that interested me, because I don't like being thought a fool or being lied to. Javo had told me that Javette spent many hours each day with Teresa and her father. They were teaching him about Punch and Judy. I decided to introduce myself to them. Hello there. I'm Michael Lanyard.
Hello, Mr. Lanyard. Jarvo told me about you, and Jarvette in his way talks about nothing else.
Oh. You must be the Teresa of the St. Christopher medal, huh?
Yes, and this is my father.
Mr. Lanyard.
How are you? I enjoyed your show.
Most everyone does, Mr. Lanyard. There seems to be a fundamental satisfaction in watching Punch do what most of us would like to do at a time or another. Fly into a violent rage and beat everybody over the head with a club.
Don't get Papa started. He'll go into the psychological significance of Punch and Judy, and you'll be here all day.
That's all right. I have nothing to do.
But Papa has. He must sleep. Doctor's orders. Rest between each performance. Excuse that.
Of course. This also is a time when I envy Punch. The years take no toll of him. Perhaps later, Mr. Lanyard.
Goodbye. They were nice nice people, but I hadn't been able to forget Frank Gibson. And I saw Frank and Ruby. I started guessing again, but there's no law that prevents a man from kissing his girl. Only I couldn't help wondering if she was his girl, or was she his partner?
And now, ladies and gentlemen, Jarbo and Jarvette.
My original plan was to spend a week with two friends, and nothing was going to get in my way. I'd made up my mind to tell Frank Gibson I was no longer interested in his proposition, nor was I interested in whatever game he and Ruby were playing. And I was going to add that I thought he was a big phony. I began to watch Jarbo and Jarvette do their act again, but something was wrong. There were no laughs. Jarvette had substituted the bottle of milk with a wooden one from Ruby's stand. The act had died, and Jarbo seemed unhappy, but it would be forgotten because tonight was Jarvette's birthday, and Jarbo had prepared a surprise party for him. He had been so careful, I doubt he knew I had found out.
Jarvette, please. It is the nipple and the nursing that bring the laugh. You cannot nurse on a wooden bottle. Go, take it back to Ruby and put it where it belongs. Go, go. We will see you in the tent later. Here's a problem, that one. Come, I have a surprise for you.
The cake had 3 candles. Jarbo told me they were for love, devotion, and friendship. He told me that Jarvette was like a little boy, but he'd never forgotten that night in France when the Gestapo in their anger had torn the tongue from Jarvette's head. Then he realized it was late, and that Jarvette hadn't returned. I told him not to worry, that I'd go and look for him. It was 3 hours later. I hadn't been able to find Jarvette. Jarbo had asked the other carnival people to look for Jarvette. He kept telling me he blamed himself because he'd hurt Jarvette's feelings. I told him he was wrong, that Jarvette had probably gone into town, that he'd return in a little while. And then Frank Gibson came in, and before he opened his mouth, I knew something was terribly wrong.
You better come with me. You too, Lanyard.
Gibson took us to the main tent, and then we saw him. Jarvette was dead. As I looked, I started to burn. I wanted to do anything that could change what had happened, but that was impossible. I told Gibson to call the sheriff. The coroner's verdict was accidental death, but I had a hunch that it was murder.
What'd they decide?
An accident. Jarvis said the little fellow was always climbing around up there. Must have got twisted up in a rope and lost his footing.
Too bad.
Yeah. Well, he was on his way over to see you after the performance. Did he make it?
Brought one of the bottles back. I saw him come in, got busy with a customer. Then when I had a chance to look again, Jarvette was gone.
I guess I was the next one to see him, Lanyard. Hello, Ruby.
Hello, Frank. How's your head?
Be all right.
What happened to you?
Scouting around the lot last night, I thought I saw someone headed over toward the ring. I took out after him, but I lost him when I got clumped. You want to feel the lump? Easy. Well, not like a light. When I came to, I found Jarvette and went to get you and Jarbo.
What did you think you saw?
I don't know for sure.
Was big, little, man, a woman?
Well, it was a man, I think. At least it wore pants. There's something funny about the guy, something unusual. He was bent over and...
Like he might have been carrying something heavy on his back?
Yeah. Like he might have been carrying something heavy on his back. By the way, that deal I offered you's off. That sock on the head ended it.
You might be wrong, Mr. Gibson. The sock on the head might have started it. Thanks for telling me. I started by making a telephone call to the company that employed Frank Gibson. What I learned surprised me. I owed Gibson an apology. He was on the level. He'd worked for them for over 10 years. He was one of their top men. I said thanks. I made a second call to a friend of mine, an actor's agent. I described Ruby and told him she once did an Iron Jaw act with her husband. I told him to level with me. He did. And when he finished, I knew enough about Ruby to know it was time to have a serious conversation with her about 2 things. $100,000 and maybe murder.
Mr. Lanyard. Look at Punch.
That's the dummy milk bottle. Javert was going to take this back to Ruby. She said he did.
It was under Punch's costume when I opened up this morning. Money.
Do me a favor. Call the sheriff. And don't mention this to anybody on the lot. Now I had all my answers. Ruby had very cleverly concealed the money in hollow milk bottles. By accident, Javert must have discovered it. And to protect herself, she'd murdered him. From the looks of her stand, Ruby had left in a hurry. Every bottle was empty. And then I found the satchel loaded with money. That meant she hadn't got away.
Put it down. Now back away from it. You found the other bottle.
After I talked to Buffalo. 2 people pulled that armored car stick up. One of them could have been a woman. You, her, and your husband.
My former husband. He was killed cleaning a gun 2 weeks later.
Convenient.
Yeah. He left me with $100,000 and hot money that I had to hide till it cooled off.
You hid it.
Let's make it short and sweet, Lanyard. 50-50. We'll leave here together, drive into town, catch a plane for nowhere, and watch the world go by.
Well, that's the best offer I've had. There's only one thing wrong with it.
What's that?
Javert. You killed him. It was you Gibson saw carrying something to the main ring. It was you who hit Gibson over the head.
What are you talking about, Lanyard?
Talking about Javert. Ruby killed him.
He's crazy, Frank. Look what he did to the joint.
I wondered why Gibson didn't grab her gun. I guess he was too surprised to think straight.
You trying to tell me she carried him up on a platform and dropped him with a rope around his neck?
Sure. High places don't bother Ruby. Remember Ritter and Romaine? The Iron Jaw Act you told me about? She could carry you up there, or me.
It's an idea.
Why should she kill Javert?
Because he stumbled onto the $100,000 you're looking for.
While you two dream up the rest of it, I'll be on my way.
Why are you leaving, Ruby?
Business. I'll get in touch with you, Frank. But if you want that $100,000, stay here and put the pressure on Lanyard.
If you want that $100,000, better look in the case she's carrying.
There's nothing in here that isn't personal to me.
Of course. There's something awfully personal about that much money.
What do you say, Ruby?
If you touch this case, it's all off between us. If you can't trust me now...
Ruby, it's just a... Go get her, Lanyard. She's got you 25 grand.
I knew Ruby couldn't get away. I've seen some rotten dames in my life, and she belonged at the head of the class. She hadn't hesitated a second when she shot Gibson. I got angry again. I thought about how cool she must have been when she murdered Javert, and she headed for the roller coaster. She'd walked into her own trap. The shot and saw her fall. When I looked down at her broken body, I didn't feel sorry. I figured Gibson had just saved the state a lot of money, and that Jarvette's death in a small way had been paid off.
The voyage continue in New York. You will be here day after tomorrow. Until then, I do not know.
I've seen the act many times, Jarvo. I think I know the routine.
Michael, will you do it?
I'd like to, if you'll let me.
Michel, mon ami.